Hi there. So today I want to talk about composition and how you can create balance, movement, and depth in your photos with just 7 easy tips. So the first tip is to create layers to increase the depth. So here we clearly have a foreground, a middle ground, and a background. And that is especially important if you're using a cell phone, because cell phones, you should limit the amount of zooming you do. But it does create almost like a three-dimensional effect, and you can see it again in this photo. By having the foreground, middle ground, and background, it gives us a sense of being able to step right into the photo. The second tip is to use the rule of thirds. You won't use it in every situation, but what it basically does is place an imaginary grid over your photo, and your camera may do this. Certainly when you use a photo editing program to crop, it will overlay this grid because it's very handy for cropping. But basically it's dividing your photo into this grid, and at the 4 intersection points is where you should put objects of interest. So for instance, here we did not center the building because it's not the main interest of the photo, and it looks better to be slightly off center. So as a rule, don't center things, but there are exceptions. So here's another example. Even with a people shot, I like to have it off center. The peak is kind of one object of interest, the farm equipment a second object of interest. I mean, obviously, it's not an exact science. But here's an exception. So when the photo fills the frame, the object fills the frame, such as the case with this tulip, it doesn't make sense to put it off center. The third tip is to keep horizons and vertical lines straight. Now, horizons, that's pretty self-explanatory. You know, make sure the water and the sky meet in a straight line. But for verticals, it's a little trickier because your camera will, if you're shooting up, the lines will bend in from the left and the right on an angle. So just try and line up a vertical somewhere near the center that would be an exact vertical. The other fourth tip is to leave space in front of objects for them to move. So in this instance, the ship falls nicely in the rule of thirds, placement-wise, but also it's got lots of room to continue sailing. I wouldn't put the ship on any of the intersection point on the right. Same with these people. Better to have them with some space in front of them to walk. So the fifth tip is to look for triangles, and this can be accomplished simply by making sure you have diagonal lines in your photos rather than straight across. It just gives more motion to the photo, more dynamic and less static. Look for leading lines. These can be fun to sort of find, taking your eye through an image. And the last tip is to provide context if you think it's necessary. So in this instance, it's a lovely waterfall, but by providing some context, it gives you a better sense of the size. So that's it for today, and happy shooting. Thanks for listening.